So I'd like to hand over. I'm not sure how many images we've got tonight in total. 96 images, which is a very good entry. So without more ado, I will hand over to our judge for tonight, Tillman Kleinhans.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, good evening, Lancaster, and thanks for inviting me to have a look at your images and to say a word or two about them. So we'll make a start with this image here, which is Achatina fullica on strawberry, snail slug on strawberry. A waste of good strawberry, but apart from that, you can't see the image as well as I was able to see it, but that image is technically top-notch. The detail is there. There's no over-enlargement. There's no jaggy edges. Sharpness is absolutely spot on. Detail and shadow detail. When it goes dark, you'll be able to see the detail in shadows here. Highlights, you've got enough highlights there. It's sharp exactly where it needs to be. Once again, you can't see on this at the moment, but that little tabletop is on a black background. Now, generally, nature things don't particularly look good on black backgrounds, although there are one or two here which have turned out quite well. But that works very, very well indeed on a black background. And because the red stands out nicely and the sort of harshness here is sort of softened with the bit of the mollusky type thing here, and then you go back to the hardness there. So there's a nice flow to the shape of that as well. If you get the chance to have a look at this under different lighting conditions, it is worth it. Very, very good image indeed. Highly commended. Here we go, blue bottle. There it is. Right, big, larger than life. And the thing I like about this is what it's resting on, there's not a lot of it, thank goodness. And a little bit out of focus down here, depth of field dictates that, but at least it doesn't detract because it gives it a base to the image, grounds the blue bottle, and then you get into it. And I think being as though it's so large in the frame, the fact that it's so nicely detailed makes up for it. Rather than just having a big bug, you've got one which has got plenty of information about it, compound eyes, bits of hair and whatever they are, bits of it sticking out, wing. Depth of field covers the blue bottle side to side, no problems there. Whether it's a stacked image or not, doesn't matter. The point is you've managed to produce some detail and the colour looked good, and more importantly the background is so natural, isn't it? It's not just monotonic, it does actually have a blend in it. There's a change, a variation in tone. Very good. Aspect ratio, yeah, suits. So our blue bottle was commended. Right, talking about static and relaxed images, this one, Buttermere, has all that. Once again, beautiful aspect ratio, suits the subject beautifully, and the way in which the light comes across from the peaks, and then it changes tone, and it gets lighter and lighter as you go through to there, gives it that lovely recession, gives it great front to back depth. And here, the light sort of scatters and you sort of lose the detail, but you don't lose it because you can see it hidden there. And then the great bit about this one is the way in which the sunlight just picks up some of the detail there and adds interest to there and down the bottom and gives the whole thing a nice scale. And I think you've got the lovely shape, amount of water at the bottom. The only thing, two things which I was like that about was one was the bright bit in the top left, whether that could have been just toned down a little bit, and whether you actually needed that bit of well, it literally is. There's bald skies in it. There's no detail in there at all. Whether coming off across there would have helped, I don't know. But nevertheless, once again, once you see this under darkened conditions, when it actually does really come alive, it looks really nice. That was another commended image. Elk. Yeah. Once again, you do need a darkened room to see this, because when you see this in a darkened room, it just goes, wow. The colours, the blue is beautiful. The elk itself, little or no detail in there. It don't matter, you don't need it because we know exactly what it is. Title's told us. The silhouette is probably actually better than the real thing, because it just gives you more of the structure and shape, and of course the breath coming out, the stance, it's majestic, and you add to it the low light, which has picked up all this crispiness here. Even, I think, that big featureless shadow going across there just adds to the strength that you associate with that creature, and that just adds to it. You know, cast the big shadow, dark, eerie, and so on, but set against that, little bits of light across there. Cracking image. Got to see that one again in the light sometime. But nevertheless, highly commended. Full Mars, nice image. Best thing about this is they are actually doing something. They are interacting with each other, and the relationship between them works very, very well indeed. Nice, neutral, clean background. Detail everywhere on there. Could so easily have lost detail. The only distraction is that big lump of rock or whatever it is there. But apart from that, great image. Commended. This is Gloriosa Superba, or Glory Lily to you and I. I said earlier about black backgrounds don't work very well generally with natural history type subjects. But this and the first one, it did, because they're not being presented as natural history, perhaps more as pictorial. And here it's all to do with that lovely shape. And those colours and those shapes stand out so well against that background. And you know, normally, you think about it, it's almost like one of those Rorschach charts, fold it in half, apart from that green bit stem coming down, but it comes right down to the bottom, ends there naturally. I think that's a lovely picture, commended. Right, Ilona, Iona, whatever it is. Okay, this is a Marmite picture. You actually like it or you don't like it, because it breaks like every rule of portraiture, doesn't it? But when I looked at that, it did exactly what a photograph is supposed to do. Remember, images were the original means of communication. People communicated to each other with images. When I looked at that, it created a response in me. And so it immediately linked with me, which meant for me it was a good photograph. I think that is a cracking image, and just looking at it, you look deep into the eyes. It's more than just a portrait. You get something of the character. Okay, the head isn't sloping, you've cut it off, it's head straight on, everything about it. Just two things which just took the edge off it for me was the darker bit there, and that looks like it's the hand coming up like that. But I think that is just so clean, clear, ultra-modern, contemporary, brilliant. Highly commended. Okay, right, this is Jupiter and the Aurora. I'm going to hazard a guess at Iceland, only because I'm dead jealous and I want to go to Iceland. And I think that's what Iceland would look like. But it's very right up to the minute landscape work, isn't it? Wide angle lens, something right smack at the front, great depth of field all the way through, but this has that little bit extra as well, because you've got a little bit of the, we'll assume it's Iceland, the Aurora Borealis, and according to this, there's Jupiter is in there as well. All right, I'm a physicist, but I don't know which one it is. I'll assume it's that one there. Could be wrong. After I've read the astronomy book on holiday, I'll let you know. But I think it's a belting image. And to me, there's two images there. From there upwards is fantastic. From there downwards is fantastic. And normally when that occurs in an image, when you join them together, the sum isn't as good as the individual parts. But here, it's better than. I think those two work together beautifully. And for me, highly commended. Some people say you can't get detail and sharpness with a digital image projected because the projection system, you've only got whatever, what do you run, 1400, 1050 or whatever it is, 1900. But you can. You've seen it here, you saw it with the strawberry, you can. And the detail and the sharpness in that is fantastic. The tonal rendition as you move through there, all that. That's so sharp you could actually cut your finger on it. Feather detail, fantastic. As soon as you look at it from any sort of distance, reasonable distance from here, everything just comes together. It's alive, it's got character, it's got intent. And the fact that it's turned round, it's alert. Neutral background, colour harmony across the whole thing, composition, fantastic. It's called Peru, but it got highly commended. Steam bath. Presumably somewhere in one of these volcanic regions. But the thing about this is, you've got like the bits of the trees which are dead, presumably, and yet you've got bits here which seem to be growing, and then you've got all this smoke and steam all around it, which sort of adds a little bit of dynamics to it, but at the same time suggests why the death might be there. And there's just one or two odd little things, like that little highlight there, a quick, and that's sorted. But I thought the composition was great. I like that one on that side, that one joining it, and the groupings I thought were excellent. And when you stand back and look at that, it's got a nice feel to it. And it's one look at that image, and the first thing I said to myself is, oh, I would love to be there to be able to take that. Commended. I know, the apple. It's amazing, isn't it? Because you just nip into, I don't know, wherever you go, you buy one of them, don't you? Or you borrow it off someone, you see it, and you notice its dispersive and refractive properties. And then all it takes is continuous background, a couple of light sources, and an afternoon. Right? And you can play about with that, and you produce an excellent image like that. Colour's great, exposure spot on, sharpness, yeah. I mean, it can't be anything other than sharp, it's not moving. And providing you've got a steady hand or a tripod, composition is good, yeah. Commended. The singing, ringing tree. Yeah, whatever, it's Bolton or something in it around there, I don't know. It's one of those places that I should have been because I live close enough, but never have. In St Helens we have something called The Dream, which was built 6 years ago, and it was only 2 weeks ago that I actually went to visit it. But this, I think, is you see, going around doing the judging, you see lots and lots of them. Really, there isn't a lot you can do with it unless you've seen Diane Owen's versions of them. But this, I thought, was a really good interpretation because one, it shows you exactly what it is. Scale, all right, we haven't quite got the scale, there's no figure there, but we've got, you know, a fence post gives us some idea, but more importantly, the graphic treatment, I think, adds to it. The composition adds to it. The vignetting at the edges forces you in, and we've looked at it from, yeah, a bit of a record shot, but then we've added our own individual stamp of pictorialism to it and ended up with a commended. Next one is Vicky. Right, lovely picture. Exposure is absolutely spot on. Nice detail up there, beautiful shapes. You can see how clear the water is, reflections beautiful, nicely lit. And the best part about this is you can't see her face. And I know for some people that will be a no-no because you need to see it, but for me it adds the mystery. You know, is she going to become the lady of the lake? Is she going to walk into it? Is she this? Is she that? It just opens up questions. And you know, the beautiful red hair set against the green, you know, nice lovely shape to the body. You know, clever one standing on the stone. I don't want to get her feet wet. Gucci shoes and all that. But I think beautiful, right over to one side, very strong image, commended. I've got my eye on you. I thought this was a cracking image, simply because of one, the aspect ratio. I think that ratio and the subject work very, very well. I love the way you've kept that to an absolute minimum. And then the one eye and the other one is partially opened, and it is like, look, it literally is, I have got my eye on you. And technically great, colour's good, detail and everything, but the link with the eye is what grabs you, because you just go straight to it and you feel as though you are communicating with it. Commended. Sky. You half like your eyes in Lancaster, don't you? Once again, see, I obviously got this thing about eyes, because as soon as I looked at that, I just went straight into the character of the dog. Now, I'll be honest with you, if you put a picture of a dog up, it's got to be good. Otherwise, you know, a picture of a dog, it's somebody's pet and so on. But it needs to be more than that. This has gone past that. This is someone having a go at taking, you know, the niceness, the ooh-ah bit of a dog and turning it into something, excuse me, pictorial to great effect. The aspect ratio, who's brave enough to do that? For a start, who's brave enough to crop it just to the eyes? And then you'd probably go, whoa, I'm stopping there. Whoa, you know what these judges are like. But to actually shift it across, I think adds to that image. You can tell I like it. So, commended. We've got the Ashton reflection. There it is. Right, okay, we've got some lovely range of tones in here, going from dark blacks right the way through to nice whites. And the vertical panorama, the vertical letterbox. You know, it's not often you find an image that will work well in that aspect ratio. Yet this one works very, very well indeed. And you know, you're looking for a line of symmetry to come across. And of course, there isn't one as such, because that comes round to there and you only get a little bit of the reflection. So in fact, rather than it being sort of flipped over, it's like a whole different viewpoint. And I think that works beautifully. You pick that up there, and then you walk through, and then you get it in full glory there, in its full contrast range, tonal depth, and of course you've got a nice sky to go with it. You know, you've almost got one picture from there, slightly different one there, and once again this is a case of the two working together well. That's commended. Okay, Black Rock Cottage. And these are the famous cottages, Rannochmore or whatever it is, somewhere up there. And you know, once again, it's like a bit like Eileen Dolan. You see them over and over and over again in their photo competitions and what have you. But why not? They're very photogenic. And here we're seeing them in a slightly different light, under snow. Slightly different composition perhaps, but you know, the position of the cottages there, this more or less is a secondary subject, or is it, I don't know, what is it, bouquet or whatever, oh, I don't know, something there, or is that the secondary? It doesn't matter. The idea is the whole thing works together quite well, and the tonal range again, it's very high key. I think the author decided on that because of the snow. I think it could do with a little bit of just the darker areas, you know, the likes of this stone here and some of the bits, just the darker areas toning, keep the rest of it like that, and that'd be fine. But once again, lovely detail in the sky, beautiful exposure to get detail in the snow and everywhere, cracking, and you haven't got direct light or anything like that. I think you've done a grand job, so commended. Kernholy 2 Neolithic tomb, infrared. Yeah, interesting one that. It's got a nice feel to it. It's slightly different. And once again, you ask yourself, you know, which is the main part of the image? Is it that part? And should it be cropped across there? But you've added that bit to give it perhaps a little bit more depth. And of course, the infrared treatment has given it an eerie feel to it, which works with it. So, and the format, the almost square format, sort of different as well. It is something different. Whether it could have a little bit more drama, once again, by working with the contrast, just to give it that feel of something a bit more mysterious. But it's got a nice sky, and you know, I quite like the difference of it. So commended for me. Fisherman on Inlay Lake, Minamar, whatever that is. Right, you get some idea, I suppose, from the shapes on the silhouette. I think exposure, absolutely spot on there. It produces a beautiful silhouette with just the slightest hint of detail in one or two places. And you get that like glow and bounce off the water. And this is one of those images where the highlights don't really matter. In fact, they add to the quality and the feel of the image. And I think the timing is great with the way in which you've got the two fishermen with their poles. That works very, very well indeed. And the background, it's just tonally absolutely correct for the silhouette. And then it just fades off, and even the sky has a little bit, adds to it. The whole thing, every little element works together. And the only thing working against it, and it is only a tiny thing, and it is only about that much, because I think that is just a little bit too close to that edge. But at least you've got water there, it's not cropped off. You've got plenty of room to play about with it. Fantastic image, highly commended. This is Linda. Yep, right. Can't remember what the name of the other girl was. That was going into the water. This is her when she decided to go in, presumably. No, don't matter. But there she is. She's in the water now. And once again, it has that nice similar feel. I think not quite, it just didn't quite have the edge of the other one. But it was a little 50-50 about the pose, whether she was going, it's cold, or whether she was actually sort of gliding out, but there is a small amount of movement in there. And once again, I love the anonymity of it, and I love the backlighting round the hair. That works well. And normally things like that would be a bit of a distraction, but here, because I think we've got the body's dark here, as we sort of go across, that leads us from the body across into there, and we can now think of the movement into there. I don't know about just that bit creeping in there, whether you need all that. But I think that was just about, I've commended it because I like the idea of the movement in. Soft mud boat, soft and gentle image here. And I have to admit, this is one of those ones where at first, I'll be honest with you, I bypassed it, right? That and Shostakovich don't go together, okay? But Agnes Obel, and away you go. The link, it's a gentle image, and it just takes a bit of time to sort of appreciate that. When I first saw it, I thought, yeah, no, and didn't think it was strong enough. But when you just sit back, let it go through it once or twice, and you begin to appreciate perhaps the more subtle bits of it, the subtle tonings as you go through, that, and these being larger, getting smaller, leading you to the boat, and then the overall sort of a glowy effect that the boat has got at the top. And normally we'd say, perhaps that should be at the bottom to give it a bit more weight. But no, this is another one of those vertical ones that works. Nice lead in, so commended. Nice day for a walk. Right. I mean, once again, when you look at them, this has something that a lot of the others don't have. It has impact. Why does it have impact? It has impact because it's got a nice tonal range. It's got a nice spread of highlights and dark bits. And yet the highlights, you don't worry about, there isn't full detail in there because it's small, it's almost specular. And you appreciate that it gives you the watery, slippery feel of that. The blacks are tending to be more black than sort of a greeny colour, although, there does seem to be a bit of a green shift in all of them. But here, it seems to be less pronounced. And the composition is great. The guy stands out nicely, the umbrella, the two dogs. That's a nice shape in itself. And the whole thing works very, very well indeed. Commended. Pelican, there it is, cracking pelican. Look at it's actually doing stuff again, and the lighting has thrown up all that wonderful water there. It's put some action into it. It's made it a lot more interesting. The backlighting here, you've managed to get some detail in the darker areas. There's just a subtle hint of shape to the eye, and there's no doubt about the variety, it says pelican, and it is. The only bit which takes the edge off it slightly, and it is only slightly because the rest of it is so good, is just these little highlights here. But once again, you can easily deal with that in your preferred image editing software. But everything about that is great. You've even got a nice bit of space at the front here. But it's lively, it's got detail, highly commended for me. This is Rose, or something like that. Rose, there you go. Right, very, very dynamic indeed. I mean, I don't know how many times you needed to do this to get it done like that, but that one there is absolutely just perfect, isn't it? The position of the head, the water trails, the hair, a microsecond too early and the head would probably be in the wrong position. A microsecond too late and the water would all be in the wrong place as well. but it's just follow the movement here, and it's the body as well as the water. As you start with the reflections which come up and it curves over, and then the water drops. It's almost like strobe photography, isn't it? As you go round, all the way round like that. And like that hair, that bit of hair has produced that one has produced that. You can follow them all the way around. It's almost like join the dots. There's an awful lot going on in there. And then the last little bit, which works well, is the drops there. Position. It's a central composition, because when you've got action like that, you need to have space around you to make sure you catch everything. So you've got an empty space there, but that's good, I think, in this case, because it actually is dark. So it's adding towards sort of a given, although it's negative space, it's adding a bit of positivity to it. And the drops are beautifully backlit, and of course the lighting defines the shape of the lady. And I think it's just, I think it's a great example. Timing spot on, highly commended. This is crossing the Udane Bridge at sunset, Myanmar. That's right, Myanmar. There you go. Right, that's once again, that's another brilliant image, isn't it? When you look at it, the silhouettes are great. The big circle of sun there, and the way it goes there. The only thing it does is it chops that lady's leg off there. But everybody else, and once again, look at it. You've got a group of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you divided it up into 3 plus 2, which is nice. And it's just little attention to detail. Those 2 people are between those 2 and are moving in. Those 2 people are between those 2 and are sat at a lower level. That person is between those 2 and is off to one side. So compositionally, it works brilliantly. And the way in which you've got the base here, which doesn't get in the way but gives you more information. Background doesn't get in the way. It's a travel, it's a record, but it's a beautiful pictorial image as well. Highly commended. The mountain palette. Yeah, this intrigued me. And the idea of whatever that is there in what looks to be salt or snow or something, and then going across and then looking at the shape of that versus that, whatever it is, however, whatever, it's when you stand back and look at it, there is that intrigue. And the only thing I wasn't sure about with it was the angle at which that is going across there, and I was just trying to visualize it instead of an angle being that way on or being that way on. But whatever, I had no idea what it is. Not that it matters. When you just look at it from this point of view, the relationship between those 2, the textures between them, I mean, that is a lovely shape in its own right. That sort of similar sort of tones and textures works with that, with the open space, the square format. Yeah, and just imagine that now with a frame. Yeah, commended. Let me have a look at my list. There we go. Okay. Well, I can just say that there were a few, 3 or 4 highly commends, and I suppose it's fair to say that of those, any one of those really could have been the first, and particularly if somebody else had judged them, they may have gone a different way. But the one that I thought that I would have on my wall, which is sort of a defining, a method of defining a winner, turned out for me to be Fisherman on the Lake. I think there were a few more, 2 or 3 more maybe, highly commendeds in the colour. And once again, there was the quality of the top ones, those highly commended ones, was such that I suppose any one of them could have been a winner. You can see now the ones that you didn't get to see before. When you look at the quality of that, look at the beautiful black against it, stands out absolutely wonderfully on there. And you know, that one there, the quality of that. But the one that, as I was looking through them, and when I sort of picked my highly commendeds and looked at them again, there was one that every time I kept on coming to, I would look at it and I would go, wow. And it never changed. It wasn't wow, but I like that one. It was wow. And once again, it's the one that the highest compliment that I could pay is, I wish it was mine, was elk.